Hi, gang. I hope this recording finds you well and as safe as possible. As always, if you're encountering difficulties, please reach out to me. I'll do my best to work through whatever situations you may be encountering. I appreciate your last talks about EMDR. So EMDR, again, used to be something that I was a little skeptical about, but I've come to kind of acknowledge and embrace its effectiveness and usefulness. So we're moving on, and we have a lot to cover this week. We have combining two sections. So let's jump right in, and I'll try to see what we can do to modify as best we can. So I'm in here, it says module 13. Really, it's 12 and 13 combined because we were a module behind. So let's just jump in, and I'm going to go through an outline, hopefully quickly, where I'm not spending a lot of your time watching me. And we can take a look and see what's in here. So module 12 and 13. So here's what we're going to really look at. So parent training, treatment, and support. So there's a big component of TFCBT that deals with parent education and parent support. Now, a big part of treating children and families really is working through and working with the parents. So oftentimes there are intergenerational traumas that happen within families. And so it's important to acknowledge that. It doesn't always happen. You know, don't assume just because a child is experiencing something that the parent may have experienced that as well, had to have experienced that as well. They might have, but there's also a decent chance they might not have. So I think this is important. The biggest thing here that I want you to think about, and I'll post some other resources in here, and because I'm going to have an appendix. And really, chapter 7 in your book is your assignment with your books, your TFCBT, Deblinger, Manorino books. There are differences between working with offending versus non-offending parents. So if you have a non-offending parent, of course, you would jump in like any other type of family situation and fully include, just be really integrated in your approach. However, if you have an offending parent, you are that child's advocate. And just because maybe child welfare or law enforcement didn't have enough to terminate parental rights or even charge a perpetrator if they're in the family, use your best, no, I wouldn't even say intuition. Rely on studies that say it's important that the child feel safe, be safe before including offending family members, offenders in with that child's treatment. So what I mean by that is there's sometimes pressure from child welfare, well, we need to integrate. Well, there wasn't enough to charge. There wasn't, we couldn't substantiate. But if you're the child's therapist and you believe their point of view and their perspective, and you'll know it when you're in the field, you'll know, I can count on, in fact, I don't even know of any child that, in my experience, I've worked with hundreds of children in different situations, I don't know of any child who has fabricated a story. So you always start by believing, and I wholeheartedly, it's very, if you remember from early on in the semester, it's very hard to disclose. It's very hard to disclose, abuse. On average, there's about a 4-year elapsement of time between abuse that happens and a time when a child chooses to disclose. So number one, there's this huge gap between when it happens and when a child chooses to disclose. Some children never disclose. Some children do not. So there's a lot of pressure. that said, you really need to be an advocate for the child, and you are the child's voice. And you can, even if the offender has a treatment provider saying, "Oh, they're good," you need to open up a consent form for you to talk to that other treatment provider and be an advocate for the child. I'm not saying talk about the child with the treatment provider, with the offender's treatment provider. I'm saying you need to get information on their progress. And one thing that we do know is that we tend to, whether you're working with an offender, whether you're working a non-offender, you tend to take the clients, whoever your client may be, you tend to take their perspective, their vantage point. And so this offender may have a strong advocate in their own, in a mental health, provider. But you are, if you're working with children, you are the point of strength and the point of defense for that child and their own emotional well-being. And unless they're guaranteed being safe, unless that offender is saying, fully admitting they made a mistake, it can even be a many-year process. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there. I know I kind of got derailed starting out really quickly here, but it's really important. It's very important to me. I think it's very important to consider. So here's kind of an outline. And I just went over that. Why is that the same? I don't know. Okay. Module 13. Let's jump into Module 13. I'll post some other materials to help you work through this as well. Module 13, you'll have a reading assignment is Chapter 4 in your book for Module 13. This is really talking about child trauma across cultures. And so one of the things that we do know is that trauma doesn't really discriminate when it comes to different, cultures. Anybody in any culture can be a victim of trauma as a child, or even, when they are a little older. So the big things to think about here are, say directive versus non-directive therapy approaches. So you can pick out, like TFCBT is a very directive approach. EMDR is a very objective approach, but it's not, making that child talk about, the specific graphic details of particular traumas. So that's important. It's also important to consider the difference between biological parents and, say, foster parents or adoptive parents, or even aunts, uncles. Be aware that the traditional nuclear family is not really something that we encounter a whole lot, and so it's important to be able to recognize and accommodate different cultures and different dynamics within families. I will say that if you have a problem working with diverse working with diverse families, working with different identities. If you have a problem working with different racial backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, it's important for you to really work through those. So in multicultural class, in ethics, you'll encounter things that will help you work through things when your own values may conflict with what your client, who your client is, and so that's a bad thing. And so I say who your client is because well, I'll leave it there. I think I could go into a lot of information. I won't. But just be aware of the cultural sensitivity within the models that we talked about, and be sure to try to match with your client's particular culture. Let me back out of here, and so here's our discussion board. And again, be looking for some other resources. I'll try to post some other resources here before I release this. So you have a choice this week. After you read through my resources, you might see what factors determine whether or not a parent is appropriate for conjoint family sessions with a child. Please identify how you would handle a situation where a parent appeared inappropriate for inclusion in therapy. So, is a parent, impaired because of substances? Is a parent not believing that their child really experienced this trauma? Is the parent not protective? Is the parent the actual abuser? What type of behaviors or circumstances would necessitate not including parents in the children's therapy? Or think about this case study application. A single mother of an 8-year-old client reports to a family therapy session with a broken arm and a black eye. During this session, she reports that her boyfriend became angry at her and caused the injuries. She reported that she refused to contact the police because she'd already filed 3 protective orders against her boyfriend. Each previous time, including this one, she said she willingly allowed her boyfriend contact with her and her child. How do you handle this situation? So if you pick that one, obviously you need to go into your ethics and think about that. How do you handle that situation? Because those things will come up. Gang, that's it. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Look for my other resources. I'm going to post some other videos, but this is kind of your hub video to help you navigate this week. So take care. Reach out if you have any issues, and I'll see you soon.